The ghostly CB radio call. It was a typical Friday night on the highway, and the air was thick with the smell of diesel and fast food as Jake Matthews settled into his cab. He had just picked up a load and was ready to hit the road for a long haul across the country. The rhythmic hum of the engine and the glow of the dashboard provided a comforting backdrop to his solitude. As he cruised along, he tuned into the CB radio, the familiar crackle of static filling the air. He listened in on conversations between truckers, the camaraderie helping to ease the monotony of the long drive. It was just after midnight when the atmosphere shifted. "Breaker, breaker, this is Big Rig 23, anyone out there?" The voice crackled over the radio, distorted but clear enough to catch Jake's attention. "This is Ghost Rider, what's your handle?" another voice replied. "Something's wrong. I'm stuck out here. No lights. Can't see anything. Please help me." The desperation in Big Rig 23's voice sent a chill down Jake's spine. "Where are you, buddy? What's your location?" Ghost Rider asked, concern edging his tone. "I don't know. I think I took the wrong exit. Everything's dark. I can't move." The voice trembled, panic seeping through the static. Jake frowned, gripping the wheel tighter. "This isn't good," he muttered to himself. "Someone's in trouble." He leaned closer to the radio. "Big Rig 23, can you hear me? This is Jake and Big Rig 57. Where are you?" But all he got back was static. The call continued, filled with frantic pleas and garbled responses. Other truckers joined in, trying to triangulate the caller's location. But every attempt to reach him seemed to fall flat, and the desperation in the voice only grew stronger. "Please, I can see something. It's coming for me." The radio crackled again, and then abruptly there was silence. Jake exchanged glances with a few truckers at the next stop, their faces pale and uncertain. "Did anyone else hear that?" he asked. "Yeah, but it's probably just some prank." One trucker shrugged, but his voice lacked conviction. Still, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He refocused on the radio, scanning for any sign of the lost trucker. Then, out of nowhere, the CB buzzed back to life. "Jake, is that you?" The voice came through, but it wasn't Big Rig 23. It was eerily familiar. "Who is this?" Jake asked, heart pounding. "Jake, it's me. I need your help. They're coming for me." The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. "Who's coming? What do you want?" But the voice began to fade, the static drowning out the words. "Help, stuck. Don't let them take you." Panic surged through him as the connection was lost. Jake slammed his fist against the dashboard in frustration. He grabbed the mic and tried to reach out again. "Is anyone still out there? Did anyone hear that?" Silence. He looked around at the other drivers who were now whispering among themselves, their faces etched with concern. One old-timer leaned in, his eyes wide. "You didn't just hear that voice, did you?" "What voice?" Jake asked, trying to mask his fear. "The one that wasn't the first guy," he replied, shaking his head. "That's not good, son. You might want to get out of here." Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew that eerie feeling well, the sensation that someone was watching him, that something was off. He started the engine, ready to leave, but before he could pull out, the radio crackled again. "Help, please!" It was Big Rig 23's voice again, but it was weaker this time, almost a whisper. "I can't hold on. It's too late." Jake's heart sank as the chilling realization hit him. "No, no, no," he whispered. He couldn't just abandon him. He flipped the switch, calling into the void. "Big Rig 23, if you can hear me, I'm coming for you." He pressed the gas, the truck roaring to life as he drove down the highway, hoping to find the source of the call. The road was lonely and dark, the only illumination coming from his headlights. He felt a mix of dread and determination. After several miles, he found a deserted exit with a small gas station that had long since been closed. He pulled in, glancing around, but saw nothing unusual. The radio crackled, and he quickly switched channels, searching for any trace of the distress call. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the cab, and the radio burst to life once more. "Jake, help me." The voice was faint, distorted, filled with fear. He followed the sound, hoping it would lead him to the lost trucker. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the empty night. "Don't look back. It's coming for you." Just then, the lights of his truck flickered and went out, plunging him into darkness. Panic rose as he fumbled for his flashlight, heart racing. He could see shapes moving in the shadows, dark figures lurking just beyond the reach of his headlights. "Who's there?" he shouted, fear gripping him. "Jake, don't," the voice called again, now filled with urgency. "Get out while you still can." In that moment, the darkness closed in around him. He felt a cold hand brush against his arm, and he instinctively jerked away. Desperate, he jumped back into his rig, slamming the door and locking it tight. He turned the key in the ignition, praying for the engine to roar back to life. With a sputter and a cough, the engine started. Without a second thought, Jake floored the gas, tearing back onto the highway. He didn't look back, adrenaline coursing through him as he drove into the safety of the night. As he distanced himself from that haunted place, the radio crackled one last time. "Jake, it's too late for me, but you can still escape." The connection cut off, and silence enveloped him. Jake drove until dawn, the events of the night replaying in his mind. He had narrowly escaped something sinister, a chilling reminder of the unseen horrors that lurked on the highways. From that day on, he kept his radio tuned to the chatter of fellow truckers, but he never forgot the ghostly call that had warned him to run. The highway was a treacherous place where lost souls wandered, and sometimes the dead reached out for help, only to be forgotten in the shadows. Unexplainable creatures. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a ghostly glow over the empty stretch of highway as Tom Hargrove drove his truck through the desolate landscape. It was a late-night haul, and he'd seen more than his share of strange sights on the road, but nothing could prepare him for what lay ahead. As he navigated a particularly isolated stretch, the darkness seemed to close in around him. The trees flanking the road stood tall and foreboding, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Tom's headlights pierced the gloom, illuminating the asphalt ahead, but failing to chase away the feeling of unease that settled in his gut. Then he saw it, something moving just off the shoulder. At first, he thought it was an animal, but as he got closer, his heart raced. The creature was unlike anything he'd ever seen. It stood on two legs, its body slim and elongated, covered in glistening, iridescent skin that shimmered in the light. Its eyes were large and luminous, reflecting the headlights like two glowing orbs. Tom slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, staring wide-eyed at the bizarre being. The creature turned its head, seemingly aware of his presence, and let out an eerie sound that echoed in the stillness, a mix between a hiss and a low, haunting wail. He felt a chill run down his spine. Adrenaline surged through him, urging him to drive away, but his curiosity held him in place. He reached for his phone, fingers trembling as he tried to capture a picture. But just as he aimed the camera, the creature darted into the woods, disappearing into the darkness, as if it had never been there. "Damn it," Tom breathed, frustration mingling with fear. He shook his head, trying to shake off the encounter. Maybe he was just tired. He put the truck back in gear and continued down the road, the engine humming softly beneath him. But the further he drove, the more he felt something was off. Shadows flitted just outside his line of sight, and the air grew thick with an unnatural stillness. Every now and then he glimpsed movement out of the corner of his eye, strange forms creeping along the edges of the forest, always just beyond the reach of his headlights. Suddenly his radio crackled to life, breaking the eerie silence. "Anyone out there? This is Midnight Rider. I'm seeing some weird stuff out here. Over." Tom grabbed the mic, his heart pounding. "Midnight Rider, this is Tom. What are you seeing?" "Strange creatures, man. I'm not alone out here, and they're watching me. They're everywhere. You need to be careful." "What do they look like?" Tom asked, his voice shaky. "Hard to describe, like shadows but alive. They move fast and they don't seem right." Just then, something dashed across the road ahead of him, a blur of movement that sent a surge of panic through Tom. "I think I just saw one," he shouted into the mic, his pulse racing. "Get out of there! They're drawn to the truck lights. Keep moving!" Midnight Rider's voice crackled with urgency. Tom didn't need to be told twice. He hit the gas, tires screeching as he accelerated down the highway, the oppressive darkness pressing in on him from all sides. The creatures seemed to emerge from the shadows, flitting between the trees, their glowing eyes tracking his every move. As he drove faster, he could see more of them. Dozens of strange figures darting along the roadside, their movements quick and erratic. Some had elongated limbs, while others appeared almost amorphous, shifting shapes that defied description. They seemed to flicker in and out of existence, as if they were phantoms from another realm. Tom's mind raced. What were these things? Were they real? Or was he losing his grip on reality after hours on the road? He gripped the wheel tighter, focused solely on the asphalt ahead, but the creatures were relentless. They followed him, drawing closer with every mile. Tom could hear their unsettling sounds, the hisses, the clicks, the whispers that seemed to seep into his mind, urging him to stop, to step outside. "Don't listen to them." Midnight Rider's voice broke through the chaos on the radio. "They'll try to lure you in. Just keep driving." As Tom pushed the truck to its limits, he could feel the creatures closing in, their presence palpable in the air. He glanced in the rearview mirror, heart pounding as he saw a mass of shadows gathering behind him, a writhing mass of eyes and limbs. Come on," he urged the engine, his heart racing. Just as he felt hope slipping away, he caught sight of headlights in the distance. A rest area. He could make it. With a final surge of speed, Tom barreled into the lot, slamming to a stop as he jumped out of the truck, breathing heavily. He ran toward the lights, glancing back to see the shadowy figures halt at the edge of the trees, their luminous eyes watching him, hungry but hesitant to cross the threshold of light. "Are you okay?" a fellow trucker shouted, rushing toward him as Tom stumbled into the safety of the rest area. I don't know what I saw," Tom gasped, still trembling. "Creatures?" the trucker asked, eyes wide. "I've heard stories, but I thought they were just legends." "They're real," Tom breathed, looking back at the darkness. The creatures remained just beyond the light, watching, waiting. "We have to warn others." That night, as truckers gathered and shared their tales, the stories of unexplainable creatures lingered in the air, a reminder of the horrors that could be found on the deserted highways. From that day on, Tom never drove alone again, forever haunted by the strange beings that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the next unwary traveler to fall under their spell. The stalker car. It was a typical night on the road for Mike Lawson, a seasoned trucker who had seen his fair share of oddities over the years. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, illuminated by the dull glow of his headlights. He was heading through a remote stretch of interstate, the kind where the only company was the occasional flicker of a distant star. As he cruised along, he noticed headlights creeping up behind him. At first he thought nothing of it, a fellow traveler on the lonely road. But as the car drew closer, he felt a prickle of unease. The vehicle was a sleek black sedan, too dark against the night, and it hung back, seemingly content to just trail him. "Just another weirdo," Mike muttered under his breath, shaking off the feeling. He picked up the pace, pushing his rig to a steady speed, but the sedan remained in tow, a constant presence in his mirrors. Minutes turned into an hour, and still the car followed, never quite closing the distance, yet never falling behind. Mike glanced at the speedometer. He was going well over the limit, and the sedan showed no signs of letting up. "Who are you?" he wondered aloud, his heart starting to race. He switched on his CB radio, hoping to hear chatter that would ease his mind. "Any other truckers out there? I've got a car on my tail. Feels off." Silence. Mike felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He glanced back, and the black sedan was still there, its headlights glowing ominously in the darkness. He could feel the weight of its presence, a looming shadow that seemed to breathe with him, keeping perfect pace. He decided to test it. Mike hit the brakes suddenly, the rig slowing dramatically. The sedan didn't react, just glided to a stop, as if it were an extension of the night itself. Confused and a bit unnerved, he pressed the gas again, watching the speedometer climb. The sedan matched him, effortlessly keeping the distance. "This is getting ridiculous," he thought, sweat trickling down his back. He picked up speed, pushing the limits of his rig, but the sedan remained a ghostly companion. After what felt like an eternity, he approached a small rest area, the promise of lights and safety beckoning him. He signaled his turn and pulled into the lot, relief washing over him. As he parked, he glanced back to see the sedan pull in right behind him. "What the hell?" he breathed, heart pounding. He fumbled for his phone, ready to call for help. But the moment he turned to look back, the sedan's headlights flickered, and then, poof, it vanished, swallowed by the night as if it had never existed. Mike blinked, disbelief washing over him. "No way," he whispered. He stepped out of his truck, scanning the area for signs of the strange car, but there was nothing, just the rustling of leaves in the night breeze. His heart raced as he approached the edge of the lot, staring into the dark void of the trees. A sense of dread enveloped him, and he decided to call it a night. Climbing back into his truck, he locked the doors, still shaken by what he had witnessed. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just fatigue playing tricks on him, but the eerie feeling lingered, making it hard to relax. He flipped on the radio, hoping to drown out his thoughts, but the static only heightened his anxiety. Just then, the CB crackled to life. "Anyone out there? This is Highway Ghost. I've got a stalker car following me. Anyone else seen it?" Mike's heart skipped a beat. "Highway Ghost, this is Mike. I've seen it too. A black sedan, right?" "Yeah, it won't leave me alone," the voice replied, panic edging his tone. "I thought I was going crazy, but it's real." Mike sat up straighter, his pulse racing. "Where are you?" "I'm at the rest area just off the interstate. I'm about 10 miles ahead and it's getting closer. I don't know what to do. Just keep driving. Don't stop for anything." The line went dead. Mike's stomach dropped, anxiety tightening its grip. He needed to warn him, but how could he? He grabbed the mic again, calling into the void. "Highway Ghost, come in. Are you there?" Nothing. Just silence. He fumbled with the keys, his mind racing. If the stalker car was real, it could be out there waiting for him too. Without thinking, he started the engine and pulled out of the lot, his eyes scanning the road ahead. As he drove, he felt a mix of fear and determination. He couldn't let the sedan claim another victim. He pressed on, glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ominous headlights trailing him again. But there was nothing, only the dark stretch of highway behind him. Hours passed, and he finally spotted a cluster of headlights ahead, other truckers at a diner. He pulled in, relief flooding through him as he stepped out into the light. He found a group of drivers gathered outside, exchanging stories and laughter. "Mike, you look like you've seen a ghost," one trucker called out, slapping him on the back. "Not far from the truth," Mike replied, his voice tense. He recounted his experience, and the others listened, their expressions growing serious. When he mentioned the stalker car, a chill swept through the group. "Yeah, I've heard about that," an older driver said, crossing his arms. "A black sedan that follows truckers, only disappears when they stop. Some say it's a warning, others think it's a curse. Or maybe it's something worse," another added, voice low. Mike shivered at the thought. "What do you mean?" "There have been stories of truckers who vanished after encountering that car, like it's marking its territory or something." As the night wore on, they shared tales of the road, but Mike couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He kept glancing at the road, waiting for the black sedan to appear in the headlights. When dawn broke, he was ready to leave. He climbed back into his truck, heart pounding. As he pulled away from the diner, he took one last look at the road behind him. To his relief, there was nothing there, no headlights, no shadowy figure. But as he drove, he couldn't shake the lingering dread. He knew the road held secrets, and somewhere, out there in the darkness, the stalker car was still waiting for its next target, lurking in the shadows, haunting the dreams of every trucker brave enough to traverse the lonely highways. Lights in the sky. The open highway stretched endlessly before Sam Reynolds as he drove his rig through the remote countryside. It was a peaceful night, the stars twinkling overhead, and the sound of the engine provided a comforting hum. Sam was a seasoned trucker, accustomed to the late-night hauls, but something felt different tonight. As he rounded a bend, a series of bright lights flickered into view, hovering just above the treetops along the roadside. At first, he thought they might be the headlights of another vehicle, but as he approached, he realized they were stationary, 3 glowing orbs pulsating in a rhythmic pattern against the dark sky. "Whoa," Sam muttered, squinting. He slowed his truck, pulling to the side of the road to get a better look. The lights hovered silently, casting an eerie glow over the trees and the pavement. Curiosity piqued. He grabbed his phone to take a picture, but just as he aimed, the lights blinked out, plunging the area into darkness. "Great," he said, frustration rising. Just as he was about to drive away, the lights flickered back on, this time in a different formation, creating a triangular shape. Sam felt a shiver run down his spine. This wasn't normal. He picked up his CB radio, hoping to connect with other drivers. "Anyone out there? This is Sam in Big Rig 32. I'm seeing some strange lights up ahead. Anyone else?" Silence. He switched channels, trying to find another trucker, but the only sound was the low crackle of static. He glanced back at the lights, which now seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shifting colors from white to blue to a deep crimson. "Come on, someone must be out here," he said, unease creeping in. He decided to move on, but as he turned the ignition, the lights blinked out again. This time, it was accompanied by an unnatural chill that filled the cab. Feeling an impulse he couldn't explain, Sam got out of the truck, the cool night air hitting him like a wave. He walked toward the edge of the road, eyes fixed on the spot where the lights had been. There was an electric tension in the atmosphere, and the world felt strangely quiet, as if everything was holding its breath. Suddenly, the lights returned, brighter and more intense than before. Sam stumbled back, eyes wide as he watched them shift and dance in the sky. They began to move, gliding slowly over the treetops, weaving in and out with an almost playful rhythm. "What in the world?" Sam whispered, instinctively reaching for his phone again. This time, he managed to capture a few blurry images before the lights flickered once more and vanished completely. Heart pounding, he hurried back to his truck, convinced that something inexplicable had just occurred. He climbed inside, locked the doors, and took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. As he prepared to drive off, the radio crackled back to life. "Big Rig 32, you there?" A voice came through, slightly distorted. "This is Midnight Rider. What's going on out there?" "Midnight Rider, thank God. You saw those lights too?" Sam asked, relief washing over him. "Yeah, I'm about 10 miles back. They're moving fast. It's like they're searching for something," the voice replied, urgency creeping into the tone. "Searching? What do you mean?" "I don't know, man, but it feels wrong. I just got off the phone with another driver who said they've been seeing them for weeks. People disappearing and then reappearing with no memory of what happened. Just gone for hours." A chill ran down Sam's spine. "I don't like the sound of that. We should stick together. I'm heading your way." "Yeah, but be careful. They seem to react to the trucks. Just keep moving." Sam nodded, though he knew Midnight Rider couldn't see him. He shifted the truck into gear, ready to follow the highway back to safety. But as he drove, the lights appeared again, this time far off in the distance, their glow pulsing ominously. "Midnight Rider, they're back!" he shouted into the radio, gripping the wheel tighter. "I see them ahead. Keep your distance. Whatever you do, don't stop." But it was too late. The lights began to close in, darting towards him with alarming speed. Sam's heart raced as he pressed the gas, the engine roaring in protest. The orbs danced around him, their glow illuminating the truck in a surreal light. "Sam, don't look at them directly!" Midnight Rider's voice crackled frantically through the radio. The glowing orbs seemed to swirl around the rig, creating a whirlwind of light and sound. Sam fought to keep control of the truck, his instincts screaming at him to escape. But the lights were mesmerizing, pulling at his thoughts, drawing him into their radiance. In a moment of panic, he slammed the brakes and turned the wheel, veering off the road into the dirt. The lights dimmed momentarily, flickering in surprise. Sam took the opportunity to jump out of the truck, his heart pounding as he ran into the safety of the trees, seeking shelter. The world around him felt alive, and the air crackled with energy. The lights hovered above, casting long shadows, their glow illuminating the forest in a haunting brilliance. He crouched behind a tree, breathing heavily, his mind racing. "Please don't take me," he whispered into the darkness, waiting for the moment they would vanish again. After what felt like an eternity, the lights began to drift away, slowly retreating into the distance. Sam dared to peek out from behind the tree, relief flooding through him as he watched the orbs vanish completely. "Sam, are you okay?" Midnight Rider's voice broke through the static. "I'm fine, I think," Sam replied, trembling. "They're gone, for now." "Get back in your truck. I'm on my way to you." He nodded, though Midnight Rider couldn't see. With cautious steps, Sam made his way back to the rig. As he climbed inside, the night felt eerily still. The lights were gone, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When Midnight Rider arrived, he pulled in beside Sam's truck, eyes wide with concern. "What happened?" "I saw them," Sam replied, still in disbelief. "They were alive, like they were searching for something." The two men exchanged stories, sharing their experiences with the strange lights, but they both knew one thing for certain: they were not alone on the highway. The road held mysteries they couldn't explain, and as they continued their journey, they remained vigilant, knowing the lights could return at any moment, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting traveler to cross their path. The final resting place. It was a crisp autumn evening as Jake Miller maneuvered his truck along the winding back roads. The leaves crunched beneath the tires, painting the landscape in shades of orange and gold. He was tired, but eager to reach his destination before nightfall. With miles to go and a heavy load on his mind, he didn't notice the old weathered sign until it was too late. "Rest stop ahead," it read, partially obscured by overgrown weeds. Jake frowned. He had been on the road long enough to know that some rest areas were better avoided, especially the remote ones. But his bladder had other ideas, and he decided to pull over. As he stepped out, a chill crept through the air, making him shiver. The rest stop was eerily quiet, the silence punctuated only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. He glanced around, noticing the dilapidated picnic tables and a cracked concrete path leading to an old bathroom. There was an unsettling feeling in the air, but he shrugged it off, attributing it to fatigue. After a quick pit stop, Jake returned to his truck, ready to hit the road again. As he turned the ignition, a flash of movement caught his eye. He looked out the window and saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, a young woman in a flowing white dress, her hair cascading over her shoulders. "Hey, you need help?" he called out, but she didn't respond. Instead, she slowly turned and began to walk deeper into the woods, her form flickering in and out of view like a ghostly mirage. Curiosity piqued, Jake exited the truck and followed her, feeling drawn to the mysterious figure. "Wait, where are you going?" he shouted. But the woman continued to glide away, seemingly unaffected by his calls. As he ventured further into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavy, thick with a sense of foreboding. Shadows danced among the trees, and the once crisp leaves crunched louder beneath his feet. He called out again, but silence swallowed his words. Suddenly he stumbled upon a clearing, and his heart dropped. There, etched into the ground, was a makeshift memorial. Flowers, photos, and candles arranged around a weathered cross. Jake realized he had unwittingly stepped into the site of a tragic accident. The woman he had seen was one of the victims. A wave of cold washed over him, and he turned to leave, but the air crackled with energy, freezing him in place. He felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if the weight of grief had settled on his shoulders. That's when he heard it. A whisper, faint but unmistakable, calling out from the shadows. "Help us!" Jake's heart raced. He looked around, dread pooling in his stomach. The trees seemed to shift, and suddenly he could see more figures, each one a victim of the accident, their faces pale and haunting. They lingered, trapped in their final moments, their eyes filled with a longing for closure. "What do you want?" Jake stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "I can't help you." One of the spirits, a young man with hollow eyes, stepped forward. "We need to be remembered. Our story, it needs to be told." A sense of urgency filled Jake as he realized the gravity of their request. They were restless, trapped between worlds, yearning for someone to acknowledge their pain. "Okay," he promised, his voice trembling. "I'll tell your story. I swear." The spirits seemed to respond, their expressions softening slightly. But then the atmosphere shifted again, growing darker and more oppressive. A sense of impending danger loomed, as if time was running out. "Thank you," the woman in white whispered, her voice barely a breath. With that, the spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the shadows of the trees. Jake felt an overwhelming wave of sadness wash over him, a deep ache for the lives lost. He stumbled back toward his truck, heart pounding, his mind racing. He climbed back into the cab, shaking with adrenaline. As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The clearing faded from view, but the weight of the encounter remained. He had promised to tell their story, and he knew he wouldn't forget. In the days that followed, Jake took every opportunity to share what he had experienced. He spoke to fellow truckers, wrote about the accident in online forums, and even reached out to local news outlets. Slowly, the tale of the tragic event began to surface, bringing awareness to the dangers of that stretch of road. As he drove, he felt a sense of purpose, knowing he had honored the spirits by sharing their story. And sometimes, late at night, he could swear he heard a soft whisper in the wind, thanking him for remembering. Though the memory of that night haunted him, it also reminded him of the fragility of life and the importance of keeping the stories of the lost alive. Jake continued his journey on the road, forever changed, a guardian of their memory, a voice for the restless spirits that had called out to him in the shadows. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.